All right, well, good morning. This is Idaho State Senator Kevin Cook with, you've just joined Breakfast with Senator Cook. Try to talk about what's happened this past week. So this is the second week of the 2025 Idaho State Legislative Session, and it is done. It's in the books. And let me just report back. Here's what's happening, or what happened this past week. So I guess first let's talk JFAC. Those who are not familiar with JFAC, it stands for Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. It's where you have 10 from the House and 10 from the Senate. We meet together and we discuss the budgets and we set the budgets. The one constitutional thing that we have to do before we close the session is we have to balance the budget, balance the books. We got to have budgets for our agencies, and they need to balance. And so that's what we're trying to do, and that's what this committee does. It is a very, very busy committee. We meet every morning at 8 a.m. and usually go until 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's busy. So anyway, I serve on that committee and have done since day one of being voted into the Senate. I've really enjoyed it. There's a little over probably 115 budgets that we have to set, and they come and report. The agency head, the budget analyst, they come and report to us every morning about their budget, and then we take that information and we go dive into it, and we try to figure out what's going on and how much money to give them or take back or whatever. But each of us have specific budgets that we're supposed to look at. We're assigned to them. We get to choose them. I have about 21 of those budgets that I will take a deep dive into to figure out where we're at with those. The biggest budgets that I have are the Department of Health and Welfare, which includes the Medicaid. So it is huge, and it's this great big black hole, and it's a lot to understand, lots to remember as you get into it. But that's what I'm looking at. Last year, we did kind of an interesting thing on the Department of Health and Welfare, on their public budgets. We pulled out 7 or 8 or 9 different programs that were set to be ongoing. So in other words, we can set a program up that goes into the base budget, and then we never have to visit it again. It's just there, and the money just shows up for it all the time, and we appropriate that. Well, last year we took between 7 or 8 of those items out of ongoing and put them on one time. So it forced us to look at it again next year and the next year until we push it back into ongoing. And so right now I am spending quite a bit of time this last week looking at those 7 or 8 programs, kind of putting them under a microscope, talking with the program leads and finding out what is the return on our investment. Is it working? Is it producing what we expect it to do? And so spent a lot of time this past week looking at that, and we'll continue to look at that as the next couple of days. Let's see, something else that happened in JFAC that was kind of big news. It hit the newspapers anyway. Is Thursday we voted on the change in employment compensation and benefits. So if you're employed by the state of Idaho, we've got to decide, okay, well, do they get a raise? Do the employees get a raise? And if so, how much? And what are the benefits that come with that? And so we look at that every year, and that's an important part. So last week I told you about the Change in Employment Compensation Committee, which they met. They decided, here's what we think we should be doing. And they recommend that to JFAC. And then once JFAC gets it, they look at it, they kind of toss it around, kick it around, and decide, okay, here's what we think it should be. So Thursday, there were 2 motions that came forth. The first motion was that everybody should get a $1.55 raise across the board, no matter who you are, what you are, how good you are, how bad you are, if you show up to work or you don't show up to work. Everybody got, this motion is everybody should get a $1.55 raise. Okay, the second motion, which happened to be me, I put up that motion, and my motion was to give them a $1.55 or a 4% raise based on merit. Now that was a $1.55 or a 4%, whatever's higher that you would get, and that was based on merit. So here's a scenario, okay? Let's say we have two workers working the same position, same job, same company. We'll call one Jim and one Joe. Jim comes in every morning a little bit early. He works through his lunch hour. He leaves a little bit late. He is a team player. He is working his tail off trying to bring everybody together and seeing how they can improve the product, whatever the product that is, whether that's customer service or producing a widget. But he's always trying to improve what's happening. Okay, that's Jim. That's what Jim is doing. Joe, on the other hand, Joe shows up at work a few minutes late, takes his lunch hour a little bit longer, goes home a few minutes early, is found often watching videos on his phone and laughing, and doesn't really do a team player, doesn't work to bring the team together or to improve the quality of the team or improve the product. So Joe and Jim, under the first motion, would both get a $1.55 raise. Both of them. Under my motion is you get the $1.55 raise or the 4% raise, whatever's greater for you, based on merit. In other words, if you are the manager of Jim and Joe, it would be left up to you to decide, okay, do I want to pay both of them the same amount, or do I want to pay the one that is working a little bit harder, that's excelling, that's innovative, that's trying to produce a better product? It's kind of left up to the manager to decide that. And so I really, for merit, I think that's important. Now, is there a downside of merit? Well, yeah, if I'm the manager and I really like my buddy and my buddy is doing nothing and I still give him the merit, then that's wrong. But that's something that we need to correct. And I don't think we punish all state employees because of me as a manager doing the bad thing, right? So I want you to think about that. Here's another scenario. What if next summer in the Olympics, okay, in the Olympics, instead of just giving the gold medal to the fastest runner, we say, you know what, you all really tried hard. Bring all the participants up that tried. As long as you participated, we're going to give you the gold medal. And that's kind of what we're doing with the state employees with that first motion is we're going to give you all the same amount of money. No matter whether you excel or not, we're going to give you it all. You think about, I look at my kids and my grandkids when they go and participate in the soccer team, basketball, baseball, whatever it is. Right now, at the end of the season, everybody gets a trophy. Doesn't matter whether you came to practice, whether you missed 50% of the games. If you were on the team, you get a trophy. And I don't like that idea. It's basically equity. We're treating everybody equal. And equal sounds good, but equity is a little bit different. Equity breeds entitlement, whereas merit breeds excellence, high standards, and innovation. And so I really am pushing my motion to say we give them merit. We pay by merit, increase their pay by merit. So anyway, we ran out of time. We didn't get a chance to vote on it, and so I would think that we'd be voting on that this next week. We'll see what happens. But that was kind of a controversial work it was a good conversation, though, good debate in JFAC, and we saw lots of different sides and ideas. And so that's what the American political system is all about, is to be able to debate disagree, agree, and work things out and compromise. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with the salary for the state employees. So kind of exciting. All right. Next subject, next thing that's going on. So this year I am back on the Education Committee, and I am really excited about that. So I was on the Education Committee the first term I was here. The second term I was the chair of the Commerce and Human Resource Committee. And then this term, they made a decision that if you're a chairman, you can't be on the JFAC committee and do budgets. Well, I personally thought I could do better, provide more benefit for the state of Idaho and for my constituents if I was on JFAC as opposed to being a chairman. So I gave up my chairmanship to be on JFAC. But the good thing about that is that freed me up, and so I'm on the Education Committee, and I'm excited about that. So I serve on the Education Committee as a vice chair. And the committee chairman is Dave Lent, Senator Dave Lent. And if you haven't gotten to know him, he is just awesome. Just very, very wise man, and doesn't get real excited. He just kind of gets it all done and thinks it through and does a great job. So anyway, one of my assignments as the vice chair, though, is to look at the rules. So as legislators, we pass law. They become the statute, okay? And then you've got your agencies. They look at that law and they try to write down, well, what are the rules that support that law? What rules do we need in place to make that law happen? And so they go through and make a whole bunch of rules. And that's what we call the red tape, right? That's what Governor Little is trying to get rid of, is some of that red tape. Make sure that we're not putting too much red tape or too much rules just because of this one little law. And so we go through those rules every year. And as a vice chair of the Education Committee, that's one of my big assignments, is to look at those rules. And so looking at those rules this week and last week, I found some stuff that they just don't feel real comfortable about. And that's the communication. So they decided to drop, right now, communications is a required credit that you have to have for a high school to graduate from high school. It's a communications credit. Well, they've decided to drop that as a required credit, and in place of it put a science, computer, knowledge, technology class in place of it. Now, if you don't know, I am a computer geek. All right, I've graduated in computer science. I have worked in my profession as a software engineer, and I really, really like what I do. I geek out on what I do, and I love it. But when I first heard that they did this, I thought, oh, it was provided to me as it was a safety thing. So we're going to teach these kids how to be safe on the internet. I thought, oh, perfect. But then I heard it was at the high school level. I thought, well, wait a minute. You're going to teach high school kids how to be safe on the internet? You've missed the boat. That should be done in elementary school. And so I really wasn't like, hey guys, you can't do that. You got to push that back to elementary school. These kids are already into the internet and know how to do whatever they want on the internet. So too late. But as I got into the rules, I realized, well, no, it's more than that. They're teaching them algorithms. They're teaching them some programming skills. So it's a really, really good class. It's getting a little bit down in the weeds. It's giving these guys a chance to see what software engineering is about, what computer science is about, maybe to say this might be a field you might want to go into. So it was really interesting. However, here's my problem, okay? I have interviewed several kids, and I say kids, high school kids, graduates, college graduates, interviewed them for jobs, for positions, for internships, and some of them are really, really missing some communication skills. And I don't believe it's necessarily their fault. They have those mobile devices, and that's how they communicate nowadays. In fact, here's an example. I'm sure you have sat on a Friday night or Saturday night with your spouse or a date and looked across the way, and you saw all these young men and young women in their beautiful tuxedos and their gowns, and they just look awesome. And it's because it's senior prom or junior prom or homecoming. They're all dressed up. And if you watch them a little bit, you'll notice that the communications is kind of lacking. All of them have their head down looking at their phone or their mobile device, texting people. And if they weren't texting, they were showing their neighbor, oh, look what I just got. Look at this text message, or look at this picture I just got from somebody. And so there's not a lot of communication going in. And I think that's one reason why you see a lot of group dates versus dating, which is how I grew up, as dating, but now it's kind of a group thing, everybody together. There's more to communications class than just saying, stand up, talk louder, don't move, don't put your hands in your pockets. There's a lot more to the communications than that. You know, as a computer guy, I'm happy to close the door on a program and not see anybody. But there are times that I have to present what I'm doing and sell my idea. And as a legislator, I certainly have to do that. And so I'm surprised how often I go back to what I learned in high school about communications, some of the art and some of the things, and also some of the things how to listen. And that is so important. And so to throw away that communications class as a required class, I'm really struggling with that. Here's another thing that I found. A former director of the INL, Idaho National Laboratory, or lab, he said, we can reteach hard skills, we can't make better communicators. You need to have that taught to you, and you need to work with that over and over again. And so anyway, we have really looked at that, and right now I'm a no-go with that. I think I need to have a communications class. I think that's important. Okay, anyway, let's move on. The other thing that I'm serving on is what we call a model school facility committee. It's an interim committee, so we'll be meeting year-round for the next 2 years. And this whole committee, the idea is to come up with a design for a school facility, for classroom. So instead of building big old Taj Mahals so that I, as an architect, can use it as my showcase, and for my next job, I can say, look, that was my showcase. Look, I architect that, I got that built. Just think what I can do for you. And so we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're putting less money into the learning classroom. And so this committee is to look up and see how can we build facilities that are more conservative, that we put the money in the classroom, that we can build these more effective and more efficiency, and that the maintenance bill won't be so high. Looking at all of that. And here's an example. Now I'm going to pull a religious card on here for you, and some of you might be offended, and I'm sorry, but I want you to think about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What's the word? Anyway, big religious group in Southeast Idaho, and I'm a member of that church. But if you go to one building that was built prior, in the mid 1990s, you will look at. And then you go to another building, you'll find that you'll be able to know where the bathroom is, the mother's lounge, the library is, classrooms. You'll know where all of that is because they're all the same. The building's the same. And so they went out and they've refined and they've got some blueprints and they says, okay, this is a good, solid model. And then they build a few and then they get back to the towns. Okay, we need to do this a little bit different. It'll be a better building if we do that. And so then they fix it and they go out and do some more. And they're constantly improving upon that one or two models. Well, and I talk with them. I says, well, are you saving money? Is it a good thing? And I says, absolutely. Absolutely, we're saving money. Contractors know what they're doing. They know how many 2x4s they need because they've already built this building 2 or 3 times before. And so we're looking at trying to come up with a cookie cutter standardized high school, middle school, and elementary school. Of course, they're going to be different sizes. You have a 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A size school, and we'll come up with that. And so that's kind of what we're hoping. That's what we hope to do with this committee. I think it will save us some millions of dollars, help the rural schools and as well as our big schools save some money, be able to put more money into the classroom. So anyway, that's what's going on. That's what happened last week. And next week, we'll be at it again, get some budget. We should have some budgets that we'll start passing, some enhancement budgets. So we did pass maintenance budgets yesterday, it's Friday. So hope you're sitting down for this. So just the maintenance budgets, we passed $12.6 billion worth of maintenance budgets. And that's just to keep the wheels on the bus. That's nothing new. And so that was passed as JFAC. Now it'll go to the House and to the Senate, and they'll get their votes and argue it and debate it and whatever. But I would expect that the maintenance budgets would pass. And so now Friday, this coming Friday, we'll pass a few more of the smaller budgets. These are enhancement budgets. So this is new stuff that they want. And we'll start passing those in JFAC Friday. We should have some of those. So anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I represent you. I'm a computer geek. I really know a lot about computers and softwares, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know about. And so if there's things that you are concerned about, please reach out to me. You can call, email, text, whatever works for you. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful weekend. We will talk to you later. Bye.